Welcome to the Virtual Ball Boys podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined once again by my good friend, Matt.
You know what they say, Chris? Dreams really do come true.
Yeah, they do. They sure do. We are we are post the bowl season, and one of the best highlights of bowl season. There's a lot that's happened in the last fucking week. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But like that feels like a month ago. That was literally last week. Last week we were recording this.
Yep.
But the Pop-Tart that took over the world.
It was last year.
Yes, technically last year. Happy 2024, everyone. Happy New Year. But the Pop-Tart bowl went off, and it was incredible. Not necessarily the game. The game was good too, but it really came down to the fact that the Pop-Tart mascot was in fact eaten. It wasn't how we expected it. In fact, I was really thinking the mascot was going to be edible. That was not the case, and I felt like they were cowards for not making it that the case. But
there's got to be food safety concerns for that.
Probably, I guess. Yeah, like I totally get your point. But what they did do instead is that they lowered the Pop-Tart into the toaster while he held a sign saying "Dreams do come true" because his whole life's goal was to be eaten. And then the Kansas State Wildcats decided to, or not decided, they were basically gifted the Pop-Tart mascot as food as a reward for winning the game, and it was gruesome to say the least. So the Pop-Tart Bowl was a big highlight of things, and it was going to be the highlight, I think, of the bowl season in general, knowing how absurd it was going to be. And because of that, when me and Matt decided to do our bowl predictions, one of the things I was trying to be like, hey, like we could maybe we should do a weird food thing again, like we did last year with Pilk. And it was at first a little hesitation,
entirely from me.
Yes, but we decided on the Pop-Tart sandwich, which is an entirely invented thing from my mind. Which could be whatever you want it to be ultimately, but the idea would be 2 Pop-Tarts as bread, and the middle would be meat, and the loser of the bowl picks would have to do it. And that unfortunately was Matt. It was close. In fact, he was leading like as of like Friday morning, and then I think I just went on a run. But
thanks New Year's 6 games.
Yeah, the SEC kind of screwed you. Like the SEC,
as they do everybody.
Yeah, the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten get the last laugh, luckily. But
yep.
The Big Ten and the SEC faced each other a lot, and since I know you're a Big Ten homer, yeah, you picked a lot of the Big Ten teams.
Wisconsin and Iowa.
Yeah.
I should have. Why did I pick Iowa of all teams? I should have known.
But regardless, Matt's gonna eat a Pop-Tart sandwich. And because he did it for me last year, and since I kind of forced this on him, I too am also going to eat a Pop-Tart sandwich myself. But Matt, I want you to do the honors of going first. What is your Pop-Tart sandwich? That's going to be hard for me to
My
say.
Pop-Tart sandwich is 2 strawberry frosted Pop-Tarts, the same one as the mascot.
Yes. Yeah.
With 2 slices of ham.
Okay. Matt, I want you to do the starting honors of I mean, I guess I can take a bite too, but I definitely want your reaction first. Mine is blueberry Pop-Tarts, frosted blueberry Pop-Tarts, 2 turkey slices in the middle. Well, let's just see how it goes. Matt, 3,
Here we go.
2, 1, go.
Like, it's not good. But the ratio I have is definitely, like, because it's, like, so much Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
You barely taste the ham.
I'm going to say it, Matt. I like it. I think it's good. At least my combination. The blueberry to turkey, it reminds me so much of, like, if you were to have, like, it reminds me so much of when you, like, marinate, like ham or turkey or whatever. And like sometimes there is like a fruity element sometimes to that marinade. Like, it reminds me of that almost.
Yeah.
It's not amazing. I would not have
No.
this on a frequent basis. But you know what? All things considered, I think I'm okay with this. And Matt seems to not be having as good of a time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it wasn't as like it's one of those things where it wasn't as kind of with the Pilk where it wasn't as bad as you would necessarily expect.
Right.
So it wasn't like this is a legendary reaction, you know.
Right. No, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
fair. I feel like legendary would we would, since this is a podcast audio format, if it was a legendary reaction, we would miss out on a lot of it.
Right.
But I'm gonna probably, I don't know if I'll finish it as the sandwich, but it's not bad. It could have been worse. I hopefully we won't have the effects of this like we had with the Pilk last time. Because I remember having the Pilk and then my stomach completely regretting it later.
You had the Pilk sweats.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what it. I don't know how else to describe it. And I think that's the right way to go about it. Yeah. So there you go.
I am feeding the rest of the ham to Remy.
Good. That it goes to a good place. I'm. You know what? Real quick, I'm gonna take a second bite out of it. Hold on.
I guess I'll eat the rest of the Pop-Tarts.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you a lucky doggy today?
Yeah. It's weird.
Lucky doggy.
But
it's you definitely like feel more Pop-Tart than meat.
Yes, but I think the turkey, because turkey's also not a super flavorful meat. It has flavor, a good flavor in my opinion, but I think it blends well with the blueberry, so it's not bad texture wise. It leaves a lot to be desired though. I think the texture is maybe the thing I'm not loving is the hardness of the Pop-Tart and then like the softness of the meat itself. All right, well, I'm gonna put this aside for now. And we'll move on with the podcast today. Yeah, that was, but you know what? Overall, not bad. I would not recommend it though. For well, it's not gonna kill you if you want to try it.
Yeah,
I'll say
it's
that.
fine.
Yeah. Anyways, well, we did it. We got through it. Another bowl season in the books, and congratulations to Michigan and Washington for moving on to the national championship.
Fuck Alabama, go Michigan.
Yeah,
go blue.
Good stuff.
Bum 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 bum. That will take my Illinois card away, so don't tell anyone.
That's fine. You've always been Michigan has been at least not a number 2 necessarily, but has been up there for you in terms of like, hey, these are a Big Ten team I can stand compared to others. So I totally respect and understand. But no, yeah, college football wrapped up its bowl season, so that's in the books.
And legitimately, the CFP games were some of the best ever. Both of them were 1-score games, especially Michigan and Alabama's going to overtime. It was very stressful the entire time, thanks to Michigan's special teams.
Yeah, I mean, last year was fun too. I mean, it had there were two matches that went down to the wire as well. So they finally got things working for that the semifinal, the CFP semifinal. So what they're going to do now is blow it all up and start a whole new playoff system next year. Yay!
Yep. Thanks, ESPN, and your money.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let us go ahead and talk about the NFL, though. Today, we're going to mainly focus on NFL stuff because we have a lot to talk about in VBBFL, especially with this segment taking up most of the beginning of the podcast here. We're gonna save VBBFL for maybe either next episode or the following episodes for our next team because there's gonna be a lot going on in the next few weeks. Because Matt, it is the final week of the regular season. It is is our last look at least 18 teams in this league. They'll be going away forever. and what will be left is 14 teams that will be competing in the postseason.
Forever is really funny, by the way.
These versions of these teams will be gone forever.
True.
Because most of the teams do have a turnover. But yeah, so then another 14 teams are going to be moving on to the postseason. What we don't know is which, what the 14 team field is going to look like overall. There's quite a few teams that did earn playoff berths in the weekend that was, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But there's a lot of teams that are still competing and still alive, and of course we'll talk about that. We'll have our picks for Week 18, which will be our final week of picks for the regular season, and we'll have our regular season champion determined. It is trending in one direction. I've already waved the white flag, but who knows? Who knows? We'll see how many disagreements we have in Week 18.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if I was making a concerted effort, but we'll see. But before we get to all that, we have to recap Week 17 and talk about some of the bigger games that came out of last weekend. Starting with the game of the week, which there's a handful of decent games. I feel like the one that everyone is talking about, and the one that I think is the one that has a lot of people, just interested about what happened there, was the Lions at the Cowboys.
Yep.
Which was a great game overall, a pretty decent game. It was a close game throughout, and it came down to the wire. And you know what happens when games come down to the wire? Either something spectacular happens or the refs fuck up. And that's what we ended up talking about. Well, guess what? It was the latter. And this time it was a new one where there was basically a disagreement from the Lions and the referees, or the referees weren't paying attention or whatever it was, and the Lions had called for a person to be eligible, and that individual, Taylor Decker, caught the touchdown to supposedly take the lead on the Cowboys, and that was called back for illegal touching, which basically otherwise meaning that that Taylor Decker was not eligible, but there's been footage since then.
2-point. It was 2-point conversion
or 2-point conversion. Sorry.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah, no. So it was a 2-point conversion, and before the play, it sure seems like Taylor Decker went up to the referee and said, "Hey, I'm eligible." It looked like there was even like 3 players that went up to him.
There was another one right next to him, yeah. And then number 70, who the ref said reported, was like 10 yards away.
Right.
Not even close.
Yeah. I think that there was a assumption made by the referee's part that number 70, who is Dan Skipper, who typically ends up going to the game and is the one that says, "Hey, I'm eligible." I think there was an assumption made by the ref that, hey, that sequence was going to happen again, and he just declared 70 eligible, without thinking that Decker walked up to him and said, "Hey, I'm the one that's going to be eligible on this play."
Yep.
Which sucks a lot.
Yeah, and you can say a lot about, Dan Campbell should have just kicked the extra point after that. Yeah, whatever. He shouldn't have had to, because the refs, other than just this wasn't missing a call, which happens all the time. It's not even like the missing the pass interference call of Saints Rams NFC Championship. They just got it wrong. They just had the wrong number, the wrong guy, and then at post game tried to deflect blame.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And it's certainly, and we're recording this on Wednesday, it certainly feels like there is not any sort of accountability going to be had on this, because
according to Schefter, his squad isn't going to do anything in the postseason.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
so
that, all right, I guess that's punishment enough. I mean, that's a lot of crews anyway. That's like half the crews that work in this during the regular season. Yeah. Usually don't work in the playoffs, so that's probably an easy decision on the league's part. But they are working this week. They're working the Ravens-Steelers games, which has playoff implications, and apparently this is not the first time that the referees have been called out for rough calls, and I believe they worked the Chiefs-Packers game a couple weeks back, which had some controversy around it as well. Look,
Yep.
I'm just going to continue to say what I always say with these circumstances. You have to outplay the refs, and I feel bad for the Lions. I think that they should. It is a bullshit call. It sucks, or lack thereof, or at least not acknowledging the fact that Decker was reporting it as eligible. Absolutely sucks. Jared Goff should have thrown a better ball at the end. For that final 2-point conversion. I mean, like I hate to be like that. I know that's not going to make people like Lions fans happy about that. Trust me, I was rooting for you. I would have loved to see the Lions have a shot at the 2 seed, and now it's going to take a lot of help to get to that point. But at the same time, this is just the kind of the NFL that we live in, where referees are going to get calls wrong, as they frequently do, and you just have to outplay them, even if in the circumstances like this that are just that you feel like there's what else could you have done. I get it. It's frustrating, but it's the way the NFL works until they hire robots as referees, which even that probably will pose a lot of issues as well. But regardless, Cowboys now put themselves in the position to clinch the NFC East, and that has been done. And we'll talk more about why that's the case in a couple games here. But let's talk about the blowout of the week: Dolphins and Ravens. Which
let's go Ravens.
Which who would have expected this?
Yep.
But I mean, look, the Dolphins. Say what you will about them, they had a fun opening to their season, and overall they've been a decent team, had a great offense, have a lot of great players on it. But every single time they've gone into these big games, and maybe with the exception of their Bills game, where I believe the Dolphins won that game handily, the first time around, they've not lived up to expectations in those games, and this is the biggest example yet of that, where the Ravens dropped a 50 burger on a Dolphins defense that has been playing pretty decently this year with Vic Fangio leading the way, and Ravens just had a great game. Lamar Jackson seems like he has solidified his case for MVP. Considering his perfect passer rating in this game as well.
It's so funny because like the MVP thing has been passing like game to game. Like as soon as the MVP is defeated, it passes along. Like it went from Dak to Hurts to Purdy to Jackson when each one got defeated.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, Tua's gonna defeat the Ravens and now take it, but nope. Nope, Lamar held on to it.
I think Lamar is locked onto it, and I don't know if there's going to be I don't think he's even playing this week. So unless someone has a monster game, I don't know if there might be votes other ways, but I think he might have locked it up.
Yeah. Let me see. I had another note on top of that. Lamar winning MVP would put this the preseason into like a completely different context with how many teams could have gone after them. I think of the Panthers and the Falcons in particular, who could have just traded for Lamar, but didn't, and how better of a team they would have been as a result. And now look, he's with the Ravens. He's winning MVP. You know, there's still Lamar chokes in the postseason, but we haven't seen a lot of people choke in the postseason, so we haven't seen him really. He still has a chance.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of all-time great quarterbacks who don't have great postseason luck, and that happens sometimes. He's having an incredible year, and I think it's showing down the stretch here. Against good defenses, Dolphins have had hit or miss as a defense, but generally have pretty good players on it and have played well. But we can't speak enough about how he handled the 49ers the week before that. A team that I feel like everyone was just like, oh, the 49ers are inevitable, and maybe not. And now it feels right now, if you had to look at the scope of the league and like where we're going into the postseason, and this is kind of where the Ravens were at too a couple years ago. And like you said, Matt, like they were upset by the Titans that year, but it's feeling like the Ravens are the favorite going into the postseason to win this whole thing.
Which I am so fucking excited about. Like, it's not a new team winning, like a new team having success, but I love this particular Ravens team a lot.
Yeah, a lot of fun players on it. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see, and it's gonna be an interesting postseason. We have the Chiefs locked into a 3 seed, so they, barring the 2 teams in front of them losing before they do, it looks like they might have to play a road team for the first time.
Oh no!
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's hey, we'll see how it goes. It's a much more interesting postseason for the AFC than in recent times.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the NFC for chaos, because and specifically the NFC East, because as we mentioned, Cowboys are now in position to win the NFC East. And how did that happen? Well, the Arizona Cardinals happened.
I knew it, Chris. You called me crazy at the midseason.
What? Oh,
because I said Dallas would win the division.
Oh yeah, well, because it felt crazy at the time, because the Eagles were still doing very well, and they were still at I believe they were like 10-1 or 9-1. They were in a very good position.
They totally were. That was before their losing streak.
Right.
Yeah.
But now we gotta talk about the Eagles, a team that has gone 1-4 in the last 5 games. And a Cardinals team that they had put away, by the way. Like, this game felt out of reach, and then all of a sudden the defense just shut down. Something that we have not talked about on this podcast. Matt Patricia is right now the defensive coordinator of the Eagles.
Oh no.
That was after they decided to demote Sean Desai. Sean Desai,
Sean Desai was technically still the DC, but Matt Patricia was the play caller.
Right. So Sean Desai was the play caller for most of the season, and then I think they had one loss too many where they were like, all right, we're switching this out, we're bringing Matt Patricia. They haven't really been good since.
Belichick coaching tree stays winning.
Yeah, right. Like, now, especially when you now look at Matt Patricia as a coach, you think about his Lions tenure. You think now you look at his years with the Patriots. You're like, that was probably Bill Belichick. Yep. Being the defensive mind that he was coaching. And as we see with this year's Patriots team, they're not an amazing defense. This Patriots team. But they're good enough where they're still making it hard for some offenses on a week-to-week basis, despite the team just being bad all around. So, man, but going back to the Eagles, the initial thought of this team being one and done in this postseason would have been shocking at the midseason point. It is now. It almost feels expected. Because with how poorly both sides of the ball are playing, right? We're focusing on the defense, which, despite all their amazing players, despite how well Howie Roseman has drafted this team, for some reason, this defense is just not performing at the level that you would expect all these players to be playing. And then on the offensive side, there's just these frustrations, these inconsistencies, like just things are not working, and that's Nick Sirianni's bag. Like, that's why he was hired there, was to be an offensive guy, and that's not working out either. And there's even to
have your defense be exploited the way it was by your former DC as well.
Right, exactly. Like, and like you could maybe just say, you could chalk it up to, oh well, Jonathan Gannon just knows the Eagles. Right, but if this was a game that was lost in isolation, I'd listen to that more. Yep. But this is a 1-4 situation. You have been bad.
The Phillies in trouble
through December, and now you're going up against the Giants, and really your only win has been against the Giants. You're going up against the Giants a second time, and you probably could take care of business against them, but I don't know. It's reached a point where you just don't know when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's a shame for them. Yep. After what was a really great last year Super Bowl and a great start to this year, feeling like they did not lose any momentum, and then all of a sudden things have changed for the worse, it seems. So there you go. That is our 3 prong of the. My cat's walking over to have the sandwich. I'm going to just bring it back over to being in front of me right now. Anyways, that is the end of our Week 17 recap. Let's jump right into our Week 18 scenarios, because there is a lot of playoff scenarios, a lot of things that can happen.
Can I do playoffs?
You absolutely could do playoff scenarios. I also have the matchups, potential playoff matchups written down as well. So go ahead and, if you have it in front of you, read the playoff scenarios.
All right. We got a lot. Okay. Already clinched. Will be in the playoffs. San Francisco will be the number 1 seed. Dallas and Detroit and Philadelphia will be in the playoffs no matter what. As for clinching scenarios, Dallas can clinch the NFC East if they win. Philadelphia can clinch the NFC East if they win and Dallas loses, so Dallas controls their destiny. Tampa Bay can win the NFC South if they win. New Orleans and Atlanta can also both clinch the NFC South if they win and Tampa Bay loses. So we still have 3 teams alive for the NFC South title since Tampa Bay could not get it together last week.
Wow.
New Orleans can also still clinch a playoff berth if they win and Green Bay and Seattle both lose, which is fascinating. Green Bay can also get into the playoffs if they win. If Green Bay wins, they are in. Also, if a bunch of other teams lose, they will also be in. Seattle can get into the playoffs if they win and Green Bay loses. Minnesota can still get in, but Seattle, Green Bay, and then either Tampa Bay or New Orleans all have to lose. So still a lot that we could see for the NFC. What are some matchups?
Yeah, I was gonna say that the matchups are interesting. I'm gonna work my way from 5-4 and then work my way through, because the 7-2s are the ones that are just everything and anything all at once. Which I know that's not the movie title, whatever. But like the 7-2s, there's so much going on, so we'll come to that in a second. But 5-4 is pretty straightforward. You have the NFC East runner-up versus the NFC South champion. That's it. There's really nothing more interesting there. So if Tampa Bay wins and Dallas wins, it's going to be Eagles at Buccaneers. That's your matchup.
That's the Eagles' best chance, I think.
Right. And then you have Eagles.
I don't know.
well, I mean, I think the Eagles are in really good shape right now. If they bottom out here, they are facing an NFC South team pretty much regardless.
Yeah.
If they do win and the Cowboys lose to Washington, then they would have to face a 7 seed, and that 7 seed could be
either NFC South or the Packers.
Packers will. So there's a few scenarios there. So
okay. Can the Packers be 6?
Packers can be 6. So
even over if the Rams lose.
Yeah, so I'll go over that in just a second, but yeah, so
Sorry.
no, you're totally fine. We're jumping around, but we'll get to it. So yeah, so Eagles can face the Buccaneers, Falcons, Saints, and the Cowboys can face Buccaneers, Falcons, Saints. Really, the scenario for the Falcons and Saints here is that they're going to be big Panthers fans, and then they just have to win against each other, and that's the scenario. By the way, not counting for ties, 'cause fuck that. That's a lot of science. That's a lot of math. Yep. As we acknowledged, fun math. Ties are fun, but. It can be difficult. All right, so then the 6-3. There's only 4 possible matchups, not counting ties. 4 possible matchups.
No.
For this 6-3. Rams at Lions. That feels like it could be the scenario. All that needs to happen.
Feels like a collision course.
What needs to happen is that the Rams or the Bears need to win, and the Cowboys or the Vikings need to win. If one of those two, if one of the Rams or Bears winning and one of the Cowboys and Vikings winning, if both of those things happen, that means that we get the Rams at Lions. There's nothing, and not necessarily the most unrealistic scenario. Um, but there is a Packers at Lions scenario here where if Packers win, 49ers win, then that if both of those things happen, then you get Packers at Lions at 6-3. If somehow the Lions get themselves into the 2-seed scenario, then the Cowboys would fall to number 3. There's no way the Eagles could be a 3 seed. You do have Rams at Cowboys and Packers at Cowboys as potential scenarios at 6-3 as well. Then you have 7-2, which there are 5 potential opponents that the NFC East winner can have. Packers, Rams, Seahawks, Saints, and Vikings. All of them could be a 7 seed. I could go through the scenarios, but there's a lot there. But essentially, the big game of this week for the NFC is Bears at Packers, which is fun.
Of course it is, because of course it is.
Which is fun because the Bears are playing at their best level as they have been, and then the Packers, of course, it's gonna just be interesting to watch how they handle it because the Packers winning basically locks them into the postseason. Whether that be as a 7 seed or 6 seed, we'll see. But the Packers winning gets them into the postseason. If not, then all eyes are on the Seahawks. If the Seahawks win, that gets them into the 7 seed. If the Seahawks don't win, then that opens the door for the Saints or Vikings. If the Saints have Tampa, if Tampa wins and the Saints win, meaning Tampa wins the NFC South, and then the Saints beat the Falcons, there's a scenario then that they would then be the 7th seed. And then the Vikings, as you mentioned, the Vikings need the Cardinals to win, the Bears to win. They need either the Falcons or the Panthers to win. Yep. And then the Vikings, of course, would need to win themselves against the Lions. That would get them into the 7th seed as well. And then, as I mentioned, the Lions as a 2 seed scenario. There's no way that the Lions and Vikings could play each other in the postseason, unless maybe tie scenarios might have that. But basically, Lions need to win that game to get to the 2 seed, and by winning that game, that knocks the Vikings out of the postseason altogether. So then the potential opponents for the Lions at the 2 seed would be Packers, Rams, Seahawks, and Saints. But that's the 7th seed. It's a lot of there's basically a line. The Packers are leading the line for the 7th seed. If they lose, then it goes to the Seahawks. If they lose, it goes to the Saints. And if they lose, it goes to the Vikings. And then if the Vikings lose, or just a scenario happens where like the Atlanta or if Tampa Bay ends up winning and Atlanta wins, or whatever the hell the scenario is, then the Vikings would be knocked out. The Packers would be the ones that would get in instead. So the Packers can get in even with a loss.
Yep.
But they would require a lot of help at that point. Yeah. So that's that. Matt, what about the AFC scenarios?
AFC scenarios. Clinching. We have a lot of clinching.
Not clenching.
A lot of clenching. Baltimore is the number 1 seed. They have clinched it. Cleveland has also clinched the playoffs. Baltimore also AFC North champions. Cleveland has pretty much, I don't think there's any scenario where Cleveland is anything other than the 5 seed. So I'll say Correct. That Cleveland has clinched the 5 seed.
Correct.
Miami is in the playoffs no matter what. Kansas City in the playoffs no matter what.
Locked into the 3
and
seed,
the AFC West champions. What?
The Chiefs are locked into the 3 seed, by the way.
Yes, Chiefs locked into the 3 seed. No way to move in or out of that. You're gonna get to the Bills in a second, but it's fucking wild how it's gonna play out.
Yeah.
Sunday night's game, Miami versus the Bills. Whichever one wins gets into the playoffs. The Bills can also get into the playoffs if they manage to if they don't win, and Pittsburgh or Jacksonville lose, then the Bills will be in the playoffs no matter what. It's like if the Ravens beat if the Ravens beat the Steelers on Saturday, the Bills are in no matter what.
Correct.
Jacksonville can clinch the AFC South if they win. They can get into the playoffs if Pittsburgh, Denver, and as long as Houston and Indianapolis doesn't tie, they can also get in that way. Indy and Houston can both clinch the AFC South if they win their game and Jacksonville loses. They can also, Indy will also just straight up get into the playoffs if they win. Same with Houston. That's a massive game. Basically, winner gets into the playoffs.
Yep.
And then, depending on Jacksonville, winning or losing determines who wins there.
Yes.
And then Pittsburgh needs a lot of help. Their biggest one is they need to win, and then either Buffalo or Jacksonville needs to lose, or if Jacksonville and Denver both lose and Indy and Houston doesn't tie, they will get in. So Pittsburgh, little bit of a toughest road here. But there's so many, like, I love the AFC seeding because there's so many games that, like, can affect things drastically, which is awesome.
Well, what is wild is that the NFC has all 8 games matter. All 8 games matter in the NFC. AFC is 5, but you would think at first, well, wait a minute, could it just be 4? No, because Denver, Las Vegas matters.
It does.
It matters in and how this happens, because it matters mainly to Jacksonville. So I want to start there. I'll start at the 7-2, which is not as convoluted as the NFC 7-2, but still as convoluted as a 7-2 gets. But it's pretty much divided by division at this point for the AFC. I don't think any ties or anything would even change that. The 2 seed is going to the AFC East champion, no matter what. So the Bills could, if they win, they go from potentially being out of the playoffs to being the fucking 2 seed. That's insane. All things considered. So
Sean McDermott undefeated since it came out that he supported Al Qaeda.
I don't think it's that much, man.
Do not support Al Qaeda. Use Al Qaeda as a motivational speech.
Right, exactly. The Bills are going to be a 2 seed potentially.
Yeah.
Which is wild. In the scenario where the Bills are the 2 seed, they could potentially face the Texans, Colts, Steelers, or Jaguars. As you mentioned, Matt, a Jacksonville win would lock the division away from Texans and Colts, but the winner of that game would still get in, and that they would be a 7 seed. So a very likely scenario is that the Bills face the winner of the Texans-Colts game. Yes. If the Bills were to win on Sunday, so that would be Texans at Bills, Colts at Bills. There is a scenario where the Bills get in as a division winner, and then they face the Steelers thanks to the Steelers winning, and then the Texans or Colts ended up winning the AFC South. That's one scenario. There's also a scenario where the Bills, the Texans or Colts end up winning the NFC South. The Bills win their division, and then Denver beats Las Vegas, and that also results in a Steelers at Bills matchup at 7-2. I don't know what the specifics of the scenarios are, but for some reason a Las Vegas win would help the Jaguars' chances as a wild card. If Las Vegas loses, Jacksonville will have to win their game against Tennessee to win their division and get into the playoffs. If not, they're out of the playoffs altogether. That's essentially the scenario that we have. And in that case, if Las Vegas wins, Tennessee wins, Buffalo wins, and Baltimore wins, which that would be if the Steelers end up losing its game against Baltimore. That's how Jaguars at Bills would happen. And a lot of the similar scenarios where if the Dolphins were the division winner here, the only difference, it would basically be like a Dolphin. So okay, here's the weird thing: the Dolphins cannot play the Texans or Colts.
Yeah, I can see that
because the Bills would be knocked lower than a 6 seed essentially if they lose to the Dolphins.
Yep.
Except for one scenario, and we'll get to that. But so essentially, the scenario would be that the Bills at Dolphins could be a rematch of Week 17. Could happen in a scenario where Baltimore wins, Miami wins, and Jacksonville wins, or a scenario where Pittsburgh wins, Miami wins, and Tennessee wins. It's nutty. And then the other 2 scenarios for the Dolphins would be that if they face the Steelers or the Jaguars, and it's kind of a similar circumstance as it was for if they were to face the Bills in that spot. Let's go to the 6-3, because there's one matchup that feels like destiny if the Bills win. In fact, That's all that needs to happen. If the Bills win, it's going to be Dolphins at Chiefs as the 6th seed.
Holy
6-3. That's it. If the Bills win, Dolphins at Chiefs will be the playoff matchup. If that doesn't happen, and any scenario basically where the Miami is the winner of the division, you get some combination of Texans, Colts, Steelers, or Bills facing the Chiefs at the 3 seed. But the Chiefs, as we said, are locked into the 3 seed. And then 5-4, similar to how the NFC is working, it is the Browns versus the winner of the AFC South. So Jaguars win, it's Browns at Jaguars. And if Jaguars lose, the winner of the Colts-Texans game will face the Browns at the 5-4. And that's basically the scenarios. It is weird how Broncos-Raiders could change the playoff landscape despite both of those teams being completely out of it. But there we are.
Yep.
So a lot of convoluted, interesting playoff scenarios. I'm excited to see how we pick games today, because then that will determine how we see the playoff picture unfolding. Which, let's go ahead and get into that. Last week, I had my best week in a while. I think my best week this season.
Nice.
Potentially. 12-4 was my final record.
Very good.
8 points for my score. Matt, you went 9-7, 2 points to your score, so that does close the gap a bit. I still think it would take a lot for me to even get close to overtaking you or even tying with you. But where we stand right now, Matt, you're sitting at 153-103 with 48 points. I'm 147, 109, 35 points. And last week I got my guarantee. I think the same thing happened as has been happening with this, where we're both getting our guarantees and we're not getting our chaoses. It is as what.
Well, that happened last week, but that's not been a trend for me.
Oh, okay. It's been a trend for me because I'm right now. I've had 3 straight guarantees, and I just had my 5th straight team chaos. Nice. So that's been a very much a trend. I wanted to also do a quick check-in on our over/under predictions, because we did our win total predictions at the beginning of the year, and Matt, we're in a tie, 14-11. And there's 2 games to keep an eye on, or 2 teams, I should say. One is the Jaguars. I had picked them to go under 10 wins, and you had picked them to go over 10 wins. Now, they cannot go over 10 wins. That is not possible, so unfortunately, you're not going to get that pick.
Oh.
But I may not get it either if the Jaguars were to win their game against the Titans. And therefore, that would result in a tie. The big game,
which I don't get why they don't do decimals for all of them. It's stupid.
I could not agree more. It is very bizarre. So barring how that game plays out, and again, so if the Titans beat the Jaguars, then I would get that pick. If not, then I think it's just a tie. Then all eyes turn to Chicago.
Of course,
because you picked over 7.5 wins, and I picked under 7.5 wins. If the Bears were to pull the upset and do to the Packers what the Lions did to them last year, you get that victory, and I don't. And then ultimately, if the Packers do end up being the Bears, I end up losing it, or I end up winning it rather. But it's a tight competition at the end, and it may or may not matter depending on how the Jaguars-Titans game plays out, but that is basically the 2 games to keep an eye on: Jaguars-Titans and Bears-Packers for the win total competition that we have not talked about since the first episode, but I kept it in the back of my mind, wanted to check in, and it was like, oh, yep, that's a thing that's happening. So just throwing that out there. All right. Well,
update.
Yes.
My plate smells really bad.
Well, yeah, that's gonna happen. That's the ham.
The ham juices on the Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
After kind of marinating for almost an hour.
Yeah. I'm happy that the turkey here is at least drier.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily love drier cold cuts, but for this instance,
in this specific instance,
yeah, I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah.
Anyways, Matt, why don't you get us started with our Week 18 picks?
All right, Pittsburgh Steelers at Baltimore Ravens. Steelers need to win this to stay alive for the playoff hunt. The Ravens, probably resting starters since they've, locked up the number 1 seed and have done everything possible this season so far, and don't need to do anything else for a couple weeks. Can keep their starters very well rested since they'll be the only ones in the AFC with a bye. Do you think the Steelers have a chance against mostly Ravens backups?
I think they do. I think that the Steelers have shown in the last few weeks that Mason Rudolph seems to be an answer for them. He's been playing very well this year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if the Ravens sitting the Ravens starters it will definitely impact how the Ravens defense plays. I could still see a Ravens teams with a bunch of backups still beating the Steelers team. I think that could happen, but I'm going to go with the Steelers here.
I feel like the Ravens will still want to try to win and knock their division rivals out, so I'm going to take the Ravens.
Yeah.
But I do really I've underestimated the Steelers last week is what almost cost me my my fantasy matchup. So
right. So that's
I played the Seahawks defense. So
yeah. So that is a very key thing right now is that the Steelers are just kind of hitting their stride on offense in a surprising way at the right time ultimately. Next up, the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. This is a de facto playoff game. Winner goes home. Winner gets into the playoffs. Nothing else more about this. Matt, who do you have making the playoffs?
I have CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans making the playoffs, and I'm guaranteeing the Texans.
Oh, hell yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, like you see the Colts falter a little bit. The Texans were on a downswing until CJ Stroud came back. And I really do think that much of a difference maker and how well this team has played so far this year, especially for a team that was projected to be a bottom feeder, I do think that they will rise up to the occasion and take over Indy.
I think it's going to be hard for them. I mean, the Titans are going to have to win that game against the Jaguars to get them to the division, like I had predicted at the midseason point. I don't know if that's going to happen at this point, but I doubted them last week, and it came back to bite me. I'm gonna hang my head in shame and pick the Texans to win this game as well.
All right. Cleveland Browns versus the Cincinnati Bengals, the Battle of Ohio, where you can't have shit. Can't have shit. No, it's can't have shit in Detroit. What's the Ohio one? Swag like Ohio.
I have no clue what you're talking about. I am sorry.
Real Ohioans know.
Sure. All right. Cool.
Browns still riding off the high that is Joe Flacco. Going to be the number 5 seed no matter what. Mm-hmm. Versus the Bengals, who disappointing season for them, but may still try to take a knock at their rivals.
Yeah, it fell apart for the Bengals down the stretch, which is really a bummer. They could have been in the thick of this AFC race if things had, the Steelers demolished them, and then they played it kind of close with the Chiefs. So it's a bummer. I think that the Browns are going to be sitting a lot of starters though. They really have nothing to play for. They don't have a bye, so it's okay. The idea of sitting starters is going to be a lot easier for them. I think the Bengals will win because of that scenario.
I will defer, and I will still pick the Browns. We have completely deferred on the AFC North.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, that happens. And look, the more disagreements, the better. If I want
for you,
if I want any shot at this, right now. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings out of the Detroit Lions. The Vikings are just bottoming out. They've had a rough few weeks here, and they are in desperate need of a win to even sniff the playoff picture, and even that they need a lot of help. Whereas the Lions could still get the 2 seed, but they also need a lot of help to get there. They're more than likely going to be the 3 seed. But what do you think is going to happen in this game?
They're still alive. They want to prove that they should have won last week. I'm picking the Lions.
I am going to also pick the Lions. I think this Vikings team is just going to go into the abyss.
Yep. Goodbye. You were brighter than the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars versus the Titans. Pivotal matchup. Jaguars need to basically win this to get into the playoffs. They still can get some help somewhere else, but as we talked about earlier, massive game for them. Who do you think is going to win?
I feel like it was the wrong week for me to chaos the Titans. I feel like this feels like this could happen here. That said, I am going to stick with the Jags. There is something about the way that Beathard played last week. Yes, it was against the Panthers, and the Panthers have been a miserable team this year. We'll talk more about them in a bit. But the Jaguars did play pretty steady football, and I think they could do it again this week. I'm going to go Jags.
All right.
What do you think?
I'm also going to pick the Jags. There's also a good chance that Christian Kirk could come back.
Yeah,
which would be huge for Trevor Lawrence, and really help this team kind of get back on where they were the first half of the season.
There you go. New York Jets versus New England Patriots. The current longest streak, I believe, unless there's another one I'm forgetting it, I believe the longest winning streak against a divisional opponent is right now the Patriots over the Jets. 15 straight wins for the Patriots. But this is a prime opportunity, a Jets team that has been starting Simeon the last few weeks. Things have not been amazing for them, obviously. But maybe, just maybe, they could get one nice feel-good win, considering that the Jets organization is going to be sticking with Saleh and crew going into 2024. Will that happen, Matt?
So, originally I had this listed as a team chaos, and then I looked and the Patriots are favored.
Yeah.
I'm still going to...
You could, I mean, I don't know, you could chaos the Patriots if you want.
Okay, it's week 18. You know.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's lower record.
Spreads are weird in week 18. Like,
True.
You just see across the board, they're weird, so...
Yeah.
For record purposes, you could chaos the Patriots.
Okay, I will chaos the New England Patriots. Yeah. I think that Belichick wins his final game as a Patriot.
Yeah.
And the Jets are duty.
Imagine if that is enough to keep
There's no way. There's no way, Chris.
I know everyone's been wanting to just kick the dirt on on Bill Belichick's reign of the Patriots, but I bet if he goes out and beats the shit out of this Jets team, that he comes back strong. I'm picking the Jets. I'm picking the Jets to win this game.
So funny. Yeah, I looked as like he's like on the betting favorites to like be the Chargers' next head coach. Why would that would be the dumbest hire, I think.
You would want like I do think that Bill Belichick could still be a good head coach.
Yeah.
But I think that if you were wanting a shift away from a defensive head coach, you don't hire Bill Belichick, a defensive head coach.
No.
You hire I think Ben Johnson's the guy for Chargers, or just one of the offensive minds that are out there. Yeah. Go after that. I don't think. Yeah, I agree. I don't think Belichick's the right call for the Chargers. Yeah.
Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints. Both of these teams are big Panthers fans, but both of them still technically alive for the playoffs. Saints have been like very up and down a lot of the season, hence their 8-8 record, and the Falcons maybe should have a higher record if they use their high draft capital.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy. Like I figured it out, Arthur. Why haven't you yet? Who's gonna win?
I'm picking the Saints here. I think the Saints showed last week that they have what it takes to win this division. I think the Falcons, I know they beat the Colts a couple weeks ago in a pretty handy fashion, but the Bears took them apart last week, and I think the Saints can do it again. I don't think the Saints are going to be swept by the Falcons. I just think that would be an absurd concept. So
yeah,
I'm going Saints. Actually, no, I thought that was my guarantee this week, but that would have been a tempting guarantee for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I'm making the switch. I'm guaranteeing the Saints over the Falcons.
Sweet.
Because I was wondering why I did not guarantee it, but now the more I think about it, I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm gonna guarantee the Saints.
Cool. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Panthers. Tampa Bay can just seal the whole deal and get into the playoffs if they win. Panthers, David Tepper was essentially fined like the regular person's wealth equivalent of like $10 for throwing a drink on a fan.
Yeah, that was the thing I wanted to talk about.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
That happened.
That sure happened. Everything's going great in Carolina. Do any more drinks get thrown on fans?
I would hope not. I would hope not. I love how David Tepper was like sold to the public as, oh man, look, he's a different kind of owner. He is totally sane. Guys, he's a liberal. He has to be better than the rest of the he's turning out to be one of the worst owners
Dan
in the league.
Snyder too.
He's turning into Dan Schneider too. The liberal
minus
Dan Schneider.
minus the harassment currently.
Right, yeah. Like right, no, exactly. Like I don't know what's going on with the Panthers. It sucks. They're in a rough spot because they could have been sitting here at the number 1 overall pick, and yet they don't. The Bears have that pick now.
Yeah, we do.
And that's a bad. This is an organization that is gonna take a lot for them to dig out of this hole. I don't know what. Yeah. This is a rough situation. I'm going Buccaneers because of that.
I'm also going Buccaneers.
So we both believe in the Buccaneers winning the NFC South then.
Yep.
All right, next up.
All right. Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. Bears have been playing really well the last few games. After a 0-4 start, they've gone 7-5. Which this feels like a 7-5 team, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will continue to beat this drum because it's very annoying. If we don't blow those games, we're 10-6.
Yeah.
The Bears, I think, are a better team than their record is. However, the Packers also have been playing very well recently, minus their defense. Their Jordan Love's been playing great. The young team has really stepped up. They were able to dismantle the Vikings last week. Who do you think is going to win this matchup?
The biggest game of the week, I think. I mean, there's a lot of big games. I think Texans, Colts, and Bills Dolphins
yeah,
are the two biggest that are in prime times. But in terms of the day slate, this is the biggest game, I think. And
yep.
It would be for the Bears, who have really nothing to lose at this point. A Bears team that has the number 1 overall seed locked up, or pick locked up. They have that draft pick locked up. If they could go out and play super well against the Packers, that's going to open a lot of options for this team going into the offseason. Like, the Bears are just positioned to have a really good offseason potentially. If they still have to play their cards right. I mean, it's not going to just fall into place for them, but things are looking good and they can afford a win here. All that said, I hate to do it to you. I'm going to pick the Packers, though.
Chris, that's a correct option.
Yeah, because
that's the obvious. Like, I don't want to use the word obvious, but like that's yeah. I'm not gonna.
The only reason why is just because I think there has to be something to be said about a team that is playing for a playoff spot and one that is just not at this point. And I also think the Packers are a much different team than the last time they faced the Bears, and I believe the Packers took care of the Bears.
Oh, it was a trouncing. That was week 1.
So the Packers are a better team than they were back then, and so I just think the Packers are going to take care of business. I am rooting for the Bears, though. I think that would make for a lot more interesting scenario. It also will lock in what my hopeful playoff a matchup of Rams-Lions. I really want Rams-Lions as a matchup.
Yeah.
Not that I want the Lions to succeed. I just think Rams-Lions is juicy, and it gets a juicy team no matter what into the divisional round. But I'm rooting for the Bears, but I'm going to pick the Packers.
I'm of course I'm picking the Bears. Come on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like they have something to play for. They're not totally out of it yet. And being the ones responsible, like I felt so much elation last year when the Lions knocked the Packers out of the playoffs,
and now the Bears are.
Now imagine if I could feel that with the Bears.
Yeah,
it's not a guarantee at all, but I am fascinated to see how well Justin Fields plays because he's been playing great the last few games, and I'm kind of at the point where, it's wild just to like think of like, because I talk about object permanence a lot. Yeah. Like you need to like look at trends. You can't just look at like what had just happened.
Right.
Like, and I see that with like week 3 this season when everyone was chanting for Caleb Williams.
Right.
And then this week when everyone was chanting Justin Fields' name.
Right.
I think that with the Bears, I'm getting all my Bears thoughts out here while we're talking about them.
No,
but
absolutely.
I think that for the Bears, what I want to see is I want to see Justin Fields next year since they are keeping Eberflus. Because the shit that's happened so much with the Bears past few seasons is we get a head coaching regime, and then the last year they draft a new quarterback. John Fox drafts Mitch Trubisky in his last year, and they suck. And then they hire Matt Nagy, and Matt Nagy has him for 3 years, and then he gets fired, and then Trubisky sucks, so he goes away, and then they bring in Justin Fields, and then Nagy sucks, so they get rid of him, and now they bring in Eberflus. And the last thing I want to happen is Eberflus's last year to be with a rookie quarterback, and then Eberflus gets fired, because that just perpetuates the cycle.
Right.
So just from a like. Not a superstitious isn't the right word, but it's the only one that comes to my mind that we can continue on with the podcast. Is that like if Eberflus is coming back, keep Fields, get a fresh start if they don't work out next year.
Yeah,
and that will totally be okay.
My hope for Bears fans is they get they've been looking better as of late. I still think that it might be a good idea to explore other offensive coordinator positions. I
agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that Getsy, again, it's been better the last few weeks, but I think it would be good to see a offensive change there. That being said, yeah, I'm completely with you. I think the move is you keep Fields and you go after one of the most dynamic receivers in this draft, which is Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. Him next to DJ Moore would be an incredible 1-2 punch for this Bears team to have. I think that's the right move. And again, I think the Bears defense has been playing great. And that is the thing that I've been trying to say. I think that Eberflus deserves credit on is that this defense is starting to turn into what he was hoping, which was
that Montez Sweat trade was huge.
Right, exactly. There is something that is halfway through the season, we felt like this Bears team was going nowhere, and finally we were starting to see the vision kind of start to come to fruition. But now, in the position that they're in, I think they need to make the right call. And so you're right. I think there is room here to fuck it up again, but they are
absolutely.
They also have a lot of leverage, and they're in a much better spot than what I would have thought they would be at this point. Thinking going back earlier in the year. So there you go. Moving forward, the Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, a game that shouldn't matter, but the Jaguars will be wanting this game to go their way if they were to lose in the 1:00 time slot. So the Raiders are a team that is potentially looking to keep their interim head coach, although things turned south last week for them. Meanwhile, the Broncos did get a win last week, but they were knocked out of the playoffs after what seemed like a final run to close out the year. Almost seemed to work out, but then fell apart at the seams. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
I don't like these teams.
All right, fair.
I'm going to pick the Raiders.
Yeah.
But it's because both teams feel like 8 and 9 teams, so that just feels right to me. This is the biggest toss-up in the world.
Yeah. Real quick, this reminded me to go back and check our barium scenario.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is bad. This is gonna be bad.
7 of 8 have been eliminated.
Okay, who's the last one?
The Packers.
The Packers.
Yeah.
Because of course.
Yeah.
Because I strong-armed you.
Yeah. But there's a chance. There's a chance that we could go 8 for 8 here on our barium thing prediction.
Come on, Bears.
And all it takes is the Bears and again maybe and some help from everyone else as well.
Come on.
But there you go. But yeah, I am gonna. You said Raiders. You're picking.
I pick Raiders. Yeah.
Yeah, I too am picking the Raiders.
All right, Philadelphia Eagles take on the New York Giants. Eagles really been slipping. They lost a game that they really should have won last week. They could have been in such prime position to take care of business, and they are not. Still can, of course, beat the Giants, but they need some help from Washington in order to take the division. Will they complete their end of the bargain?
I do not. I'm team chaosing the Giants to close out.
Fuck yes. Of course, we both choose our teams.
Yeah.
Last week.
I don't know. Like I'm not like I'm usually not like this, but I do think the Giants had what a weird year for them. One that I'm gonna remember though. One that I feel like, despite all the bad, had some fun elements to it. The DeVito thing was fun while it lasted, and obviously. I was hoping that DeVito would continue to play super well. That it just didn't work out. But
no,
I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for the Giants. I'm not necessarily optimistic. I feel like this was a step back overall. But my hope is that this regime, who I still trust enough, does end up making some right moves. I think part of what they're going to do next week after the game is probably get rid of Wink Martindale, which is a shame, but it does seem like there's friction in that coaching staff there. And then we'll see. I just know that they're going to roll with Daniel Jones going into next year, and I'm just very skeptical to see if that's going to really work out for them. But we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they'll actually put some weapons around them, or continue to put more weapons around them, because it did seem like that was the case already. But
yeah.
And then get a defensive coordinator that could use the talent that's on this team too the best they can. See what happens. Giants are boring. Right. The Giants are going into this offseason as one of the more boring teams there. I'm just like, I don't know. Bears, I think I have a lot more fascinating things to say about them, about what all the decisions they're going to make. So there you go. Who are you picking in this game?
I'm picking the Eagles.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yes. All right, cool.
All right, you're up next.
I am up next. Okay.
You just talked a lot, but
I did. I did.
So did I and the Bears.
Seahawks at the Cardinals. A game that the Seahawks absolutely need. They lose this game, they're out. They win this game, they still need the Packers to lose to the Bears to get into the playoffs. What do you think is going to happen here, Matt?
Seahawks have been really shaky, and the Cardinals have shown their ability to play close as well. But I think the Seahawks still have a slight edge, so I'm going to pick them.
I'm going to defer. I feel like this defense has fallen apart completely for the Seahawks. It's been really bad down the stretch. I think that the Cardinals have what it takes to kind of take care of business here. And I think that there is a lot of positive that you can take out of the season, despite how it ended up going for the Cardinals, where I think all of us expected them to be the worst team in the league. Turns out they weren't, but they're still near the bottom of the league. They also have a very interesting decision when it comes to Kyler Murray. And I think he's shown in the last few weeks that he can play very well, that he can be a franchise quarterback. And I wonder if Kyler Murray is going to be the one that's going to be on the trade block, or if they're going to want to keep on moving forward with him.
I did see reports saying that they want to stay with him.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then they have to build a better team around him, and this is a new team, so they're very early on in terms of that process. So we'll see what happens. But I'm gonna pick the Cardinals.
All right. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Los Angeles Chargers. This game doesn't matter, and there will be 2 backup quarterbacks playing. Let's move on as soon as we pick.
Yeah, I'm picking the Chiefs.
I'm picking the Chiefs too. We will see their downfall in the postseason.
I hope. Next up, the Rams at the 49ers. This is a big time game for the Rams. They did clinch a playoff berth. They're in. They're safe. But it would be nice to at least get a 6 seed to face a Lions team rather than get a 7 seed to have to face the Cowboys. Although they might want to face the Eagles. They might want to face the Eagles if the Eagles somehow stumble into that 2 seed, right? But regardless, there's a chance, though, that they might sit starters. I think the 49ers are probably going to sit at least some starters. I would imagine McCaffrey has to sit, considering he has an injury.
He's sitting for sure.
Yeah, considering that he's has an injury that he's dealing with, he should not play in this game. What do you think is going to happen here?
I will still pick the 49ers.
Okay, I'm going to pick the Rams, and that is going to make it 7 disagreements.
I love it. You can totally still win.
I can still, it would take me having to sweep, but
right.
It's still, there is still an option here, for me. Wow. All right. Well, now we still have 2 more games, so let's see.
Yep.
What happens? What's the next game?
Dallas Cowboys versus the Washington Commanders. Cowboys want to lock up that 2 seed and that division win, and they totally can against this very floundering Commanders team. I bet that Rivera's done with this season.
Yeah,
after the season, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, gotta go Cowboys.
Commanders. I'll take the Cowboys as well.
And finally, Sunday night football, the Bills at Dolphins. Winner takes the division. Loser goes to the wild card or falls out of the playoffs if you're the Bills in this scenario. Who do you have winning this football game, Matt?
This is monumental. This is the best possible game for them to have done. Sunday night, especially with the stakes for the Bills of if the Steelers and Jaguars both win, that they could be out.
Yep, 100%.
That said, I think that the Bills will still win this game. The Dolphins have been on fraud watch for me for a while, and the Bills have put a lot of stuff together. And I think the fraud meter has been passed on from the Bills to the Dolphins. And I still love the Dolphins a lot. I still love Mike McDaniel, but you see the cracks. And I think that the Bills are going to surprise everybody, take care of business, which week 3, week 4, nobody would have thought.
It was by mid-season, it felt like there was not a chance that the Bills make the division.
Right.
Or make the playoffs, rather.
Yeah.
And now they could beat the 2 seed, and I'm with you. I think that the Bills are going to be the 2 seed in this playoffs, which is just insane. But I'm picking the Bills. I think they take care of business. The Bills have had the Dolphins number. The Dolphins did beat them earlier this year, but the Bills have, in many times over, have had taken care of the Bills for years to come. And I feel like the Bills are back to that level of oh no, we are clearly been a more consistent team than the Dolphins over the last few years, and we're going to prove that once again. So I'm going to take Bills.
Cool.
Never mind. That was originally going to be my guarantee.
And then you changed it.
I changed it to the Saints. I feel a little bit better about the Saints.
Okay.
about the Saints guarantee compared to the Bills. But there you go. And with that, 7 disagreements for this week, which I thought I was gonna maybe have to do a little bit of gymnastics, just for showmanship to maybe get to that point. But it just turns out the way, especially how the season has gone for us, we've had lots of different disagreements every single week, and this is, I think, by far the most we've had. Steelers, Ravens, I picked Steelers, Matt picked Ravens. Browns, Bengals, Matt picked Browns, I picked Bengals. Jets, Patriots, I picked Jets, Matt picked Patriots. Bears, Packers, Matt picked Bears. I picked Packers. Eagles, Giants. Matt picked Eagles. I picked Giants. Seahawks, Cardinals. I picked the Cardinals. Matt picked the Seahawks. And Rams, 49ers. I picked the Rams. Matt picked the 49ers. Holy shit. Now I'm actually curious with how that plays out. I'm gonna stall for. I know you want to get out of here very soon.
So I know for me, for the NFC, that would make my NFC teams. It would go 49ers on top, and then it would be Dallas versus Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lions versus Rams. And then Eagles versus Tampa. And then my AFC should be Ravens on top, Bills versus... My 7 would be Houston. Bills, Houston. And then Chiefs, Dolphins, and then Jaguars, Browns.
Yeah. My AFC would be Texans at Bills, Dolphins at Chiefs, Browns at Jaguars.
Same. Okay, so same.
And then NFC, Packers at Cowboys.
Yep.
Rams at Lions, Eagles at Bucks.
So our only difference is you have the Packers in, I have the Seahawks in.
Right. Yeah. So
yep.
There you go.
Which, if any team will take down the Packers, I will bet that the Cowboys take care of that.
Yeah. No, I love a good Packers Cowboys playoff game because those usually have been very good over the years.
True.
And I believe the Cowboys have won the last 2 of them, or at least the last one I think I remember was the Cowboys beating the Packers, I think. Never mind. Maybe the other. I don't know. Who cares?
It's usually the Packers who win.
Never mind. Yeah,
because the Cowboys don't win playoff games unless it's against the Buccaneers.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, there you have it. We are all set for Week 18. Yeah, this was a long ass podcast. Yeah, good call by me on the not doing VBFL because that would have been way too long. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I hope you all enjoyed the regular season with us. It's been a blast. Next week is our first playoff episode. It's going to be super exciting as we narrow down the field from 32 to 14. It's going to be really nice. And also we'll have a lot of news, I'm sure. A lot of firings, a lot of changing of things going on. So we'll have all that next week. And until then, thank you all. And we'll see you next week.
Good night and good ball.